In today's video, I'll make some brief mentions on the 49th Bishop of Jerusalem, John III, going through the 50, 51st, and 52nd Bishops of Jerusalem, highlighted here blue. The time periods noted are slightly different than what the Wikipedia or Roman Catholic sources mention, but this is from an Eastern Orthodox timeline or stamp. So I'll refer to this in the video. Uh, Real high level of the four, it seems that for a period of about 150 years, the disputes or the polemics highly focused on bishops and monks and priests and lay people choosing a side, whether it was going to be what's called the Chalcedonian decree or the Chalcedonian expression of faith regarding Jesus Christ being in two natures, or the opposition, which is in some cases called anti-Chalcedonian or non-Chalcedonian, which basically rejects that Christ is in two natures. And among the opponents, there's a variety of different opponents. Like, so some of them could be called monophysites, some of them could be called miaphysites, some of them could be called Arians, some of them could be called Eutychians, um, some of them, like, there's usually a leader or a specific place or person that the opposition is connected to. It seems like those places come from either Alexandria or in Egypt or Antioch in Syria, with a little bit sometimes from Palestine or Persia, and eventually, like it affects Constantinople or the Eastern Roman Empire. But basically, these Christological disputes seem to be focused on Christ, whether he exists in two natures and can really be perceived and understood in his divinity and humanity, or not, as far as concerning the Council of Chalcedon in the year 451. But these four people I want to mention because how do we end up today with the patriarchate? So if you go to Jerusalem, you'll notice there's parallel jurisdictions. There's the Roman Catholics, there's the Coptics, the Ethiopians, the Armenians, the Syriac or Jacobites, as they were historically called. Um, and then some of them are friendly. Some of them on certain time periods, not so much. Like, for example, the Spaniards or the Georgians, they usually had, or the Russians, they had positive relations or uh, good sort of support, whether financially or in terms of labor, like providing work for building or reconstructing places for pilgrimage. But today we end up with different bishops, and so in my case, I want to focus on the Eastern Orthodox or the the, the true canonical successors to the apostles, specifically James the Just, because that's what this list is about. It starts with James, the brother of God, going to Simeon, going to Justus, going to Zacchaeus, and just continuing all the way to today to his beatitude, Theophilus the Third. So as I go through these four, I'll mention brief highlights. So John the Third of Jerusalem, he was in the beginning a monophysite, but then after he was elected to become Patriarch of Jerusalem, he changed his mind and he anathematized all the opponents of the Council of Chalcedon. Um, in his case, previously he was influenced or uh, learned from his father, so the Bishop of Sebastian, Samaria. Um, and so he himself was also a bishop there in the same place and was a supporter of the non-Chalcedonians. Um, and he was even elected or appointed by a Monophysite emperor, Anastasius. Um, and regarding the Eastern Roman Empire banishing or deposing Patriarch Elias for supporting Patriarch Flavian II of Antioch, all these things, these decisions from a government or from a secular point of view seem to do with the Christology, whether Jesus Christ can be expressed in two natures or if he can only be expressed as one united nature. Um, but this John the Third, he experienced that. So during the time of his about 8 years, that's what he was dealing with. And examples of supporters would be Archimandrite Saint Sabas the Great, or Saint Sabas of Palestine, who was a strong Chalcedonian. The other person is Peter of Jerusalem. So this one basically follows. And in his belief, he's also remembered or commemorated as being Orthodox or holding to the Chalcedonian definition that Christ is in two natures. Uh, and he agreed in a deposition or removal of office of Anthimus I, who was a monophysite patriarch of Constantinople. Um, some support that the later patriarchs of Jerusalem got from the Roman Empire include Justinian. So Saint Justinian, he issued an edict condemning Theodore Mopsuestia, Theodoret of Kir or Cyrus, and Ive or Ivas of Edessa, who supposedly were Nestorians but who were never excommunicated and who had died in the 5th century. Peter signed the edict but included a proviso or condition that if it would not be signed by the Pope of Rome, his signature would be invalid. Eventually, the Emperor Justinian forced the Pope of Rome to sign the edict. It stands out uh, that this Patriarch of Jerusalem made a condition that unless a different patriarch would sign, specifically the Pope of Rome, that his would be invalid. My only comment here is that uh, in what's it called in recognition that there's no such thing as papal supremacy. What he's doing here is basically relying on Rome because the Patriarch of Rome is still Orthodox, meaning the Patriarch of Alexandria and Constantinople and Antioch are compromised, and because they're compromised with Monophysite bishops, he needs to be in communion or in agreement with someone who is Chalcedonian or who is strongly defending the two natures in Christ. So that's my only comment for here for why this statement would be made and what it means from a Eastern Orthodox perspective. Um, but in the future, like things go back and forth. So sometimes in the West, the bishops of Rome could also become heterodox or forsake Orthodox declarations or positions. And same thing for Jerusalem or Constantinople, Antioch, and Alexandria. So there seems to be a tension, and that's what I'm highlighting with these four, the 49th, 50th, and 51st bishops of Jerusalem, that there's dialogue and that there's the opportunity to change your mind, kind of how it was with John III. So moving on from Peter, you, Makarios. So Makarios, was ruling Jerusalem for two different time periods, and it seems that because of the Christological disputes, that's why he was installed or removed and reinstalled. But it seems like for him, the Origenist monks or supporters of Origen were the ones who promoted the enthronement of Makarios as Patriarch of Jerusalem. However, Emperor Justinian, who was staunchly Orthodox, favored Eustochius, who was an official in the Church of Alexandria. In 552, Justinian finally dethroned Makarios and appointed Eustochius to replace him after a tumultuous time as Patriarch against the Origenists and Monophysites. Eustochius was deposed in 564 and Makarios returned to the patriarchal throne. So it went from Chalcedonian to non-Chalcedonian to Chalcedonian again to non-Chalcedonian. And then after 574, returning to Chalcedonian. But I will do that in a different video for John IV and beyond. I did want to finish just with a few different statements. One is regarding St. Sabas. So he's mentioned as a Chalcedonian. What's the impression that someone else could have about this holy man? So here's an introduction. At a certain moment during the last 3 years of his reign, Emperor Anastasios received a petition on behalf of the monastic communities of Palestine. The monks, led by the Archimandrite Sabas, urged the emperor to support the Chalcedonian doctrine rather than the teachings of the anti-Chalcedonian bishop Severus of Antioch. This letter, which was written by Sabas and his associates, is preserved in a holy life writing account by St. Cyril of Scythopolis. Uh, Cyril portrays Sabas as a venerable ascetic and above all as a charismatic leader of the monks of the Judean desert east of Jerusalem. In the first decades of the 6th century, Sabas' authority in ecclesiastical politics to Palestine was paramount. Yet his influence even surpassed regional boundaries, reaching all the way to the imperial palace in Constantinople. Besides sending letters, such as the mentioned petition, Sabas also has several audiences with two emperors in person. This extension of the boundaries of Sabas' influence, based on his holiness, is the central subject examined here. And then I also want to read this. This is a Roman Catholic website, but I want to give the perspective of that also. The patriarchs of this time were Theodosius, who was a Monophysite, Anastasius, Martyrius, Sallustius, Elias, John III, Peter, Makarios, Eustochios, who was an origenist, although later he changed his mind and became Orthodox. John IV, Nemus, Isaac, Zacharias, Moderatus, Sophronius. An important event for the city was the residence there of the Empress Eudokia, wife of Theodosius II. So it stands out that this Eudokia was a monophysite. She arrived first in 438 and then settled at Jerusalem from the years 444 to her death around 460. She spent this last part of her life in ardent devotion at the holy places, in beautifying the city and building churches. She rebuilt the walls along the south so as to include the Conaculum within the city. On the north, she built the church of St. Stephen at the traditional place of his martyrdom, which is now the famous Dominican convent and Ecole Biblique. Justinian I, the emperor, also added to the beauty of the city by many splendid buildings. Of these, the most famous was the Great Basilica, dedicated to the Blessed Virgin, with a house for pilgrims attached. It stood in the middle of the city, but has now completely disappeared. He also built another great church of the Blessed Virgin at the southern end of the temple area, which is now the Al Aqsa Mosque, where the Golden Dome that the Muslims use is. The famous mosaic map of Jerusalem, discovered at Madaba, gives an idea of the state of the city in Justinian's time. So, you want to get an idea of what the place looked like in the 6th century, you can Google mosaic map at Madaba. During this period, the See of Jerusalem, the Apostolic See, like those of Alexandria and Antioch, was troubled continually by the Monophysite schism. Under Juvenal, the great crowds of monks who had settled in Palestine broke out into regular revolution against the government and against the patriarch, whose change of front at Chalcedon they bitterly resented. In my other video where I talk more about Juvenal, you can hear kind of um, his words, his actions, and how he dealt with the Monophysites. They set up one of their own number, Theodosius, who acted as an anti-patriarch. For a short time, in the year 452, Juvenal had to give way to this person. So also in the other sees of the Patriarchate, Orthodox bishops were expelled, and Monophysites, such as Peter the Iberian. There's a reference to Georgia. The Syrians have a memory of him being a Monophysite, whereas the Georgians, who are Eastern Orthodox, have a memory of him being Diophysite. But he was basically made a bishop near Gaza in a place called Majuma, and he was made a bishop by a non-Orthodox bishop, which is this Theodosius, the anti-patriarch. So what stands out here is that there's a very regular interval of Monophysites being told that they're wrong, them refusing to accept that they're wrong, and then using some kind of tactic to either ignore or get rid of Orthodox bishops and then either replace them or put parallel jurisdictions to support the Monophysite doctrines. The Empress Eudokia was at first an avowed Monophysite and helped that party nearly all the time, meaning providing funding. That she was in the city of Jerusalem. Juvenal fled to Constantinople and implored the help of the emperor, Marcion. He returned with a body of soldiers who reinstated him, uh, killed a great number of the monks, and finally took Theodosius, who had fled, as prisoner. Theodosius, the anti-patriarch, was then kept in prison in Constantinople almost till his death. This disturbance was not finally put down till about a year later, so from the year 452 to the year 453. Eventually, the Orthodox abbot, St. Eustohios the Great, converted Eudokia, who died in the communion of the church in the around the year 460. The further Monophysite disturbances affected Jerusalem, of course. Martyrius accepted the Henoticon. There's another bishop of Jerusalem. He was Orthodox, but there were compromises in trying to have peace or trying to have some kind of synod or togetherness with those who did not accept the Council of Chalcedon. See his letter to Peter Monagus of Alexandria and Zacharias Scholasticus, the historian who wrote a Syriac Chronicle with the bishops of his patriarchate. Elias of Jerusalem supported Flavian of Antioch in resisting the emperor Anastasius, who had condemned Chalcedon. He was then banished, and John, bishop of Sebastian, Samaria, intruded in his place in the year 513. But John became Orthodox too and broke his engagement with the Monophysite emperor. Anastasius as soon as he had possession of the see. So here's the John the Third that we started the video with. Meanwhile, St. Sabas from his monastery by the sea was a mighty support to the Orthodox. John the Third of Jerusalem accepted the decrees of the Orthodox Synod of Constantinople in the year 518 and the formula of Pope of Rome, Armistas. John the Third's successor, Peter, held a synod in September 536, which he proclaimed in his adherence to Chalcedon and Orthodoxy by agreeing to the deposition of the monophysite Anthimus of Constantinople. Deposed in that year, according to the Acts of the Synod in Mansi, chapter 8. From this time, the patriarchs seem to have been all Orthodox. Though the Monophysites had a strong party in Palestine and eventually set up Monophysite bishops in communion with the Jacobites, which was called the Syriac Orthodox today, in the line of Sergius of Tella, even at Jerusalem itself. The first of these Jacobite bishops, they did not take the title of patriarch, but they were called bishops, was Severus in the year 597. From him descends the present Syriac line. In the year 614, a great calamity befell the city. It was taken by the Persians, who at this time were not Muslims, they were Zoroastrian. In 602, the Roman Emperor Maurice had been barbarously murdered by order of Phocas, who usurped his place. Uh, the Persian Khosroes or Khusru II, king of Persia, had found protection from his enemies at home with Maurice, who had even sent an army to restore him. The Persian king, furious at the murder of his friend and benefactor, then declared war against Phocas and invaded Syria. The war with Persia continued under Phocas' successor, Roman Emperor Heraclius. In 611, the Persians took Antioch in Syria, then Caesarea in Palestine, and Cappadocia and Damascus. Oh, sorry, not Palestine, Cappadocia, and Damascus in Syria. In 614, they stormed Jerusalem. So basically, between like 614 and 638, that's when Orthodox Christians in general are destroyed, and then that gives the opportunity for non-Orthodox or Monophysite leadership and influence to take hold and take shape at the beginning of the 7th century in Jerusalem. Khosrow's son-in-law Shaharbaz besieged the city. In his camp were 26,000 Jews eager to destroy Christian sovereignty in the holy city of Jerusalem. It is said that no less than 90,000 Christians perished when Jerusalem fell. The patriarch Zacharias was taken captive to Persia. The Anastasis, or the resurrection, the Church of the Resurrection or the Holy Sepulchre, the Martyrion, or like the holy things of the saints, the relics, and other Christian sanctuaries were burned or razed to the ground. St. Helena's great relic of the Holy Cross, the one where Jesus was crucified, was taken off to Persia in triumph. The Jews, as a reward for their help, were allowed to do as they liked in the city, but their triumph did not last long. So 11 years later, in 622, oh sorry, 8 years later, in 622, Heraclius marched across Asia Minor or Turkey, driving back the Persians. In 627, he invaded Persia. Khosroes fled, was deposed and murdered in 628 by his son Siroes. In the same year, the Persians had to submit to a peace which deprived them of all their conquests in Turkey, Syria, and Palestine. The Persian soldiers evacuated the cities of Syria and Egypt, which they had conquered. The relic of the true cross was given back. In the year 629, Emperor Heraclius of Rome himself came to Jerusalem to venerate the cross. This is the origin of the feast of the exaltation of the Holy Cross, which is celebrated every September 14th in the Eastern Orthodox churches. The emperor, as a punishment for the treason of the Jews, renewed the old law of Emperor Hadrian, forbidding them to enter the city. I'll stop here because I want to change topic. So before these 516 to 564, before that, we have in Antioch, Flavian II. He was patriarch of Antioch from 498 or 505 to the year 513. He attempted to maintain a middle course among the decrees of the Fourth Ecumenical Council at Chalcedon without satisfying either the Chalcedonian or non-Chalcedonian parties. Flavian was appointed patriarch of Antioch as his successor to Patriarch Palladius by Emperor Anastasius the Monophysite, after he agreed to accept the controversial document and statement of Henoticon made by the Emperor Zeno that was an attempt to cure the split between the Chalcedonian and non-Chalcedonian parties. However, after becoming Patriarch of Antioch, Flavian did not join in on the repudiation of the Council of Chalcedon in the year 451. In the year 512, at a synod in Lebanon or Sidon, convened by the Monophysites, an attempt was made to condemn Chalcedon and to depose the Patriarch of Antioch, and the Patriarch of Jerusalem, Elias. The fathers of the Synod took no action after Flavian and Elias presented their defense. The Monophysite party was enraged and went on to accuse the two Flavian and Elias of Antioch and Jerusalem of Nestorianism and got Emperor Anastasius the Monophysite to depose them. Flavian was deposed and banished to Petra, which is in Jordan. Severus was chosen as his successor. Um, in 518, Flavian died in Petra in Jordan while still in exile. So this kind of leads to like the Oriental Orthodox, or what's called the Jacobite Church, the Severus of Antioch. So the dissident bishops, or those who want to not be in agreement with the Council of Chalcedon, it seems like that struggle is pretty strong between the years 451 to like 638, or whenever the Muslims basically took over and invaded the Eastern Roman Empire. But with that, I'll stop today's video. If you want to keep hearing these stories, with part of it is readings from Orthodox sources, part of it is will sometimes be quotes, if possible, or excerpts of different sources. But in general, I'm trying just to make this story arc, or give this grand narrative connecting the first century James the Just, going all the way to the present Patriarch of Jerusalem, who is the canonical patriarch. And if you like the video, it promotes it so that more people can see and access. If you do watch the video, please watch, or in the future, try to watch the whole thing without stopping, because I've noticed that some people will stop after like a couple minutes and then return later to watch it, and that minimizes the amount of times that the algorithm will promote the video to other people. Thanks for your time. See you later.